Welcome to another episode of Digging In, where we take a little deeper look at South Dakota high school volleyball. And of course, I've got Darren Tipton of Adrenaline Volleyball to help me dig into what's going on around the area. Always fun to take a look at volleyball, but now that we're over halfway into the season, I feel like we have a little better semblance. You watched a couple of great matches last week, including, Sioux Falls Christian take that next step against Dakota Valley. We're learning more, aren't we?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think they, without, Cave egged them in the lineup, and it was just kind of a different feel. They overcame some adversity in that match and showed just how deep of a team I think they are. But also then watching Dakota Valley show how well they can play a set. They kind of hit a wall the last couple sets against Sioux Falls Christian. A lot of that had to do with
But they got
Sioux Falls
one.
Christian. Yeah, and then the way they came out on Saturday against some very solid teams and being the first team to knock off O'Gorman. Really probably had other than the champions Western Christian, they had probably the most solid Saturday in that top division at the Pentagon tournament. So learned a lot about them. We've kind of said sometimes you can really grow in a loss. And I think they did in that loss to Sioux Falls Christian.
I do too. I was almost ready not to write off Dakota Valley, but to tuck them away as a non-contender, and they came out and they showed us that they might have some fight left before the season. Let's get into the category of who's hot in high school volleyball right now. We do this every week, and you want to talk about Arlington, a team that continually shows that they deserve to be among the best in Class B.
Yeah, we've gotten to watch them more and more and really kind of focused on them on Saturday and had a great day. They've won 17 of the last 18 matches in those two. There was a 3-set in a tournament loss to Warner, and then they dropped the two close sets on opening night that we've talked about.
They went the distance,
Yeah, with Woolsey, Wesleyan, and Northwestern. But the more I watch them, I think a little bit more impressed every time. And in our power poll, it moved them all the way up to number 2 because I think Hailey Carlson is one of those players that can just take over a match. And I think it's Pierre. They have a senior setter, so they have experience there. And they have multiple weapons, which we've talked about a few times. I think their defense is getting in order. I think that freshman libero that's kind of worked her way in. But they have an experienced lineup, and they were dominant on Saturday against some other quality teams in that pool. And so I'm not so sure that she might be pushing for a front runner for Player of the Year in Class B and in our vote. So Arlington is definitely hot, 17 of 18, and a team that will factor in, we really think, in the postseason.
Yeah, I'm going to mention a team in AA, Brandon Valley. This is a team that is kind of stuck in the middle, and they've gone on a nice little tear lately. They've lost a couple. They did lose to Western Christian and back to Roosevelt a while back, but they've gotten a chunk of confidence going with some wins. 7 of their last 9 now they've taken. They beat a Rapid City Christian team. They beat a Hill City team from Class A. Yes, I know they're a class below, but then they competed with O'Gorman at the Pentagon, where they got the best of them in a couple of sets. So that's got to give them confidence. I know looking back, if they got to play them again next week, it could be a little different, but they've got some confidence going forward.
Yeah, I think their defensive game and their first contact game looked a lot better on Saturday, and that was kind of had been the missing piece. We had talked about their length in the front row, their multiple attackers, their multiple weapons, and just seemed like their confidence and their attitude on Saturday was their start to finish. They had a very, very good day. And Steve, we talked a lot about in the preseason, and they started out with a couple tough losses and a very difficult schedule. Now they're getting rolling, and I think it's that experience in that back row that led to a very successful Saturday. So yeah, I think you definitely have to look out for Brandon Valley.
Yeah, we're looking for some teams in that next tier of AA who's going to step up. Maybe it's Brandon Valley. They've got a couple of interesting games coming up. Tonight they play Aberdeen. They've got Pierre and O'Gorman in the next week. So we'll find out quickly if they can keep being one of those top teams, those hot teams in AA. Let's talk about some under-the-radar stars. We talk a lot about the stars, especially later in the show with some players of the year. And then we talk about some guys under the radar who we need to give some pub to. Who do you want to talk about?
Yeah, well, first of all, this list could be really long after Saturday.
Oh, sure.
We came with some great names. It's hard to only mention a couple, but I thought in a team and a couple players that are under the radar, but McKenzie and then Hailey Larson, senior outsides for Colman-Egan, and that's a team. Again, we bumped them into our power poll. We talked a week ago that they kind of flew under the radar all last year, and they had this year, so we said, all right, enough. We need to start talking about them.
They're on the radar.
Yeah, they're on the radar now, and they had a really tight match with Plourde Geddes, and they really dominated the first set, but those two, Emery is that player can play all the way around and just another powerful, heavy arm, as Hailey likes to say. And the fact that with Larson, they have multiple weapons and they have more than just one option, that gives a lot of Class B programs difficulty. I think the bulk of their schedule coming up, I know they play Chester at the end of the year. I think they have a match with Garrettson, but they're in that very difficult, I think it's Region 5. And you have to look out for those two, but also their team. And we seem to start talking about Colman-Egan a little bit more because they've had 2 solid years in a row now. Yeah,
I think we definitely do. Those are that's a team that made it to state for the first time last year. This year, they're reloading with some new players and players like McKenzie, who had a spot last year, but I'll tell you what, they're building a little bit of a program at Colman-Egan.
Absolutely.
So that's good to see. I'm going to bring up a player from Chester, just an 8th grader, already played as a 7th grader. I guess she's still under the radar a little bit. Emery Larson, their libero, who really gets all over the court. I know we talk a lot about Jada Kenyon and Brecken Ewald, who get a lot of the kills and a lot of the attention for Chester. But it takes a player who can play defense, and she's been one who's really picked up her game defensively all over the court, getting some big dig nights, some 30 dig nights, 2 out of the last 3 games, once against Bridgewater Emery, where they didn't come out with a win, either lost 3-0, but she's definitely a factor defensively.
Yeah, athletic kid that moves so well, and I think Coach O'Hara really likes her coachability. That's very talented 8th grade class that got thrown into the fire. Yeah. Her, including last year, has come along, and I really think playing some of the AA teams they played early on, and just that speed and her having to do a little more and react a little bit quicker and just learn to communicate has helped her grow this year. And you're right, she gets better every match. It's a fun class to watch for Chester, and she's going to play a huge role because they do have that front row that if they can get the ball up, they have 2 solid setters, they're going to be effective. Yeah. So she really is the anchor and the key for Chester, and fun to watch. That it was tiny back there as an 8th grader, but works hard and a solid volleyball player. Yeah,
you mentioned it, those games against Mitchell and Watertown early on. I feel like she really grew a lot from those games, and you just look at her numbers, and she got really consistent after that and has really had some dynamic games since then. So just a grinder and just an 8th grader, Emery Larson from Chester. Let's talk about some statement matches. This is some teams that are looking to make a statement. They have an opportunity to do so, and you want to talk about a couple of them coming up this week.
Yeah, again, it's a couple of them that are matched up against each other, so I think we could say statement matches for all of them. First 2 start tonight. Pierre has a difficult week and a challenging week. O'Gorman tonight, and then Brandon Valley, I think, on Saturday at home. I think it's a statement match for Pierre because I think when they came to Washington last time, maybe a little nervous. That first set struggled. That second set, they had Washington. They were in total control, let it slip away, and then end up, getting swept by Washington. I think it's a statement match for them because they want to prove with a young team, and they are one of the younger AA teams, despite how talented they are. Like, they want to prove that they come to Sioux Falls, play against, the class favorite, and better performance maybe than they did a couple weeks ago against Washington, and they could very well win the match. And then with Brandon Valley on Saturday, they're going to know a lot more with back-to-back state tournament contenders. This could be a preview of an opening round state tournament and then a semifinal, right? And the other thing, Brandon, like you talked about, it's important for them now to keep that consistency and that attitude with Pierre, and then I think, is it O'Gorman?
O'Gorman next Tuesday.
Yeah, and so it's a big week for them. And I think that it's a big night for Sioux Falls O'Gorman. And I don't think they played their best on Saturday and dropping, the 2 matches. So I think Coach Heck probably had them in the gym getting refocused, and now they have the win Tuesday. So now you have this quality opponent coming in your home gym, a better crowd. So I think it's a statement match for them tonight as well, just to see if they can take care of Pierre. And Pierre's a very good volleyball team, so both teams will need to play very well. It's not a walkover for either of them. So I think for all 3, it's a statement match. And then the last one that I had in Class A was Rapid City Christian and Hill City, because I think it'll be their most difficult match left on. I take that back. They do go to the Northwestern tournament coming up here, but this is another one. It's a rivalry game, and coming off the Pentagon, where they competed with some teams, but Rapid City Christian had a tough day. Hill City dropped a couple matches. They were in a lot of matches, so did they take confidence from that, or was it, I don't know, a negative that because of their record, right? So to see how they respond tonight against each other back home is there's a couple matches I'm really interested in.
I think they're going to both benefit a lot just from getting those reps against some tough teams. And then Hill City came out really well their first game after against Phillip, took care of business against them. But now, you got to keep playing those matches to show that you belong.
Yeah, and they were fun. I was very impressed, and Hailey had talked too, with the defense of Hill City. Rapid City Christian, Kiefer and Eggy are what we thought they were, and Kiefer on the outside is as good of an attacker as there is. But with Hill City, the Wathen girls both defensively, he's scrappy probably too much when it's an undersized team, but they play hard, and they're working in a brand new setter, right? This year with, they lost Barber this summer, so they're working in a setter, and they, in the opening round, they gave O'Gorman all they could handle as well. So it was interesting, though they came up short. I think they probably gained confidence, and so whoever can come out on top again tonight just continues with that confidence they probably gained last weekend.
Some statement matches coming up always every week. There's great matchups to look forward to. Player of the Year candidates. This is where we highlight the top handful of players of the year who have really shown what they can do or are making a charge toward being one of those top tier players. And we want to talk. We've talked about one player from Lincoln already. We got to talk about another one, Bailey Plourde.
Yeah, so Bailey's had a long varsity career for Lincoln. One of the top all-around, if not the top all-around outside hitter in the state. Definitely a vocal leader for them and someone who they need to play well. Her serve game is aggressive and as solid as anybody in the state. She sets in rhythm. She will put the ball away. Improving on her back row skills for them. She plays all the way around, and she will be that go-to offensively for Lincoln, who now is kind of flown under the radar after the first couple of weeks of the season. We haven't talked about him a ton, but Bailey, a Division I commit, to NDSU, and 4-year, I believe, varsity player for Lincoln. So definitely one of the top outsides, if not the top outside in South Dakota.
Yeah, she definitely deserves to be mentioned among the best in the state. Playing for Lincoln. I want to talk about probably the obvious one, but somebody who's been getting a lot of headlines lately, Bergen Reilly of O'Gorman. Of course, she's going to be recognized as one of the top players in the state. As a sophomore, was the player of the year for us at least, and this year came back strong. She wasn't sure where her position would be coming off the beginning of the year. They knew they needed more attackers, knew that she also brought a lot if she was able to just take over the game as a setter. She's done a little bit of both. And now she has a 2-week hiatus where she played in the U18 World Championship and brought home a bronze medal. And they ran into a buzzsaw, really, playing Italy, not to make it to the gold game. But she showed what she can do. She played a lot. It was on the court the whole game in the bronze medal game as well. What can't she do?
Yeah, I think you talk about with her attacking game and what she does there gives O'Gorman so much versatility, and the fact that she's just a great volleyball player.
Right.
And a college possession is setter and their court vision and all those things. But now, I mean, how cool was it for our state and for her, and just to watch and see her in that red, white, and blue is just, it was amazing. And so
she got to play more and more throughout the tournament, which was a testament to how well she played.
Yeah, and competing with that level of competition and, you know, seeing that from all around the world will only help her coming back. You know, that's, like, we had interviewed her a couple weeks ago, or a couple years ago now, when she started this process, and she talked about wanting to push herself, and that was definitely a great opportunity, but so awesome. But yeah, I mean, in talk for her game, that's why she was Player of the Year. As a sophomore, Gatorade Player of the Year, you know, club All-American, and on the U18 team because she can do so many things. But I think O'Gorman this year really needs her as that extra attacker, which she did last year on the state championship team so well, playing with her sister. Yeah,
she needs to be that attacker, and then coming back, you know, it might take a couple games just to get everybody back on the same page. We do have Brandon Valley at O'Gorman on Midco next Tuesday, so make sure you tune in and see, you know, the American, the one who's representing the U.S., Bergen Reilly, and see how she does coming back against a tough opponent in Brandon Valley. But they also need her for her leadership, and without her, it was a little disjointed last week for O'Gorman. They did play well the week before, but they took a loss, and that's something they're not used to doing in the last year and a half. So it'll be a lot of fun to see how that team comes back together with Bergen back on the court next week.
Yeah, and fitting in. And one of the things she's always talked about is working on her leadership, the skill-wise, and it's one of the things she is working to improve in her, I don't know if you call it her game or just her persona, but the skill-wise and the on-the-court is there. And I just think for her teammates having that comfort, having your back. But there's a lot of talent on that team, and I could ask them, they expect to play better tonight, I think, than maybe they did last week. So
a lot of fun watching one of the best in the world right here in our own backyard. What are you guys working on coming up that we should be alerted on? Just, you guys put a lot of effort into covering the sport of volleyball in South Dakota.
Yeah, so we're just right now we're watching a lot of matches, going back and starting to put our preseason Future 50 list together already for next year, and started just tossing names around, and we're diving in a lot to the postseason.
Yeah, it's coming right up.
Yeah, love that. And so we're working on a couple things, some special programming we're going to do for the SODAC 16 and kind of tournament headquarters, if you will. And so just getting amazed with the postseason and just trying to watch still as many teams. I will be at the O'Gorman Pierre match tonight, but then tuning into 5 or 6 more matches online and just trying to follow as many athletes and tell as many stories, I guess we can, because Class B is such a great story this year, and these programs that haven't been talked about a lot in the past is really cool. So doing more of what we do, and this is an exciting time. This last month and a half will be great, and we'll be busy, and we like that.
That's awesome. It's going to be a lot of fun. And coming down the stretch, I think in AA and in B, we've got a lot of questions that still need to be answered before we hit the playoffs. So keep it right here on Digging In, so we can dig in, and make sure you tune in next Tuesday on Midco Sports to check out Brandon Valley at O'Gorman. For Darren Tipton of Adrenaline Volleyball, I'm Jason Adair of Midco Sports. We'll see you next week.